All right, Madison, whenever you are ready.
My presentation is about how Asian Americans were affected by COVID-19. In the United States, Asian Americans have, like most minorities, have always faced some sort of discrimination. This discrimination has spiked at different points in history, such as the Chinese Exclusion Act and Pearl Harbor. The Chinese Exclusion Act was one of the first laws that was passed in the United States. It was passed in 1882, and it prohibited all legal immigration of Chinese laborers at the time due to economic anxiety of white reporters at the time. Pearl Harbor took place in 1941 after Japan bombed the United States, and it was when nearly 120,000 innocent American citizens of Asian and specifically Japanese descent were put in relocation centers across western states under the pretext of national security. This is a poster from February of 1886, a few years after the Chinese Exclusion Act was passed. This discrimination that Asian Americans face once again spiked in early 2020 due to the misinformation that was spread about COVID-19. According to the CDC in their COVID-19 timeline, COVID-19 originated in Wuhan, China in early January 2020, rapidly spreading and becoming a pandemic. Yale professor Grace Cowles says that news coverage in the United States focused mainly on the hygiene of a seafood market in Wuhan and wild animal consumption as a possible cause for COVID-19, which negatively linked Asian Americans to COVID-19 in a great way. It also did not help that the majority of online initial stock photos of COVID-19 were of Asians wearing masks, which you see here in a photo by the James Stein stock photo company. The government also negatively handling the spread of information did not help, and some government officials even spread negativity in regards to Asian Americans and COVID-19 themselves. Former President Donald Trump was one of the many government officials who negatively spoke about Asian Americans in regards to COVID-19, and according to Mariah Belinia, a reporter from the Washington Post, critics warned that Trump's repeated use of phrases such as the Chinese virus and the Kung flu could escalate attacks on Asian Americans. This was proved true by a reporter from the Daily Beast, Wajahat Ali, who stated that since Trump's use of these phrases, Asian Americans were yelled at, pushed, attacked, and spit on. Which brings us into hate crimes. Asian Americans faced harassment and hate crimes every day in person and online. According to Vanity Park, a professor at the UCF School of Nursing, physical assaults rose from 10.8% to 16.6%, and online hate incidents rose from 6.1% to 10.6% from June 2020 to June 2021. There were also just under 10,000 anti-Asian hate incidents that were reported from March 2020 to September 2021. Examples of some of these hate crimes were, according to Woodson Cleave, a reporter from the Washington Post, an Asian American school teacher found a slur spray painted on her car. According to Mariah Belinia, another reporter from the Washington Post, a Filipino man was stabbed in New York, an Asian woman was punched in the face on a subway in New York, a man was beaten with his own cane at a bus stop in Los Angeles, and a Thai grandfather died after being pushed to the ground in San Francisco. Because of this fear of being hate crimed, a lot of Asian Americans were afraid to leave their houses, according to Olivia. Most Asian Americans, because of this, chose to keep their children at school in online school and physical schools reopened, because they were afraid that their children would experience racism at school. Some parents did pull their children out of online school and back into physical schools, but then put them back in online schools after they did experience racism at school. This also likely affected grades because in fall of 2019, 7% of grades given to Asian American students were Fs, and this number more than quadrupled to 30% in fall of 2020. As for long-term effects, this is likely to have long-term effects on Asian American children and just in general mental health, because Alan Wang, student at UC Davis, said that Asian Americans' use of social media during the pandemic was associated with stress and anxiety. And Park says that when racial bias is perceived across multiple everyday contexts, there is likely to be psychological and physiological consequences in the long term. This photo is from this magazine, and it shows people at an anti-Asian hate rally. This graph shows that anti-Asian hate crimes surged 145% from 2019 to 2020, and overall hate crimes dropped 6%. For my stimulus materials, I chose Letter to My Nephew because it discusses discrimination against race, and The Lack of Peasants because it discusses discrimination due to societal status. I chose these both because they discuss discrimination, while my paper also discusses discrimination. In conclusion, Asian Americans face discrimination discrimination every day due to their race because of the misinformation that was spread about COVID-19. Solutions for this would be harsher punishments for hate crimes and for the government to fund the Stop AAPI Hate organization, which is an organization that aims to stop hate crimes against Asian American and Pacific Islanders. Problems with these solutions, though, are if the government is willing to fund the Stop AAPI Hate organization, if they are, where the funding will come from, and if they do what the Stop AAPI Hate organization can realistically do. There's also an issue with the ability to inflict harsher punishments because of the justice system. And this concludes my presentation.
All right. What evidence did you gather that you did not include, and why did you choose not to include it?
I gathered a lot of information on vaccines and how different minorities felt about getting vaccinated. I chose not to include this in my presentation, even though I included it in my paper, because I felt like I didn't have really a place for it.
All right. And what are the implications of your findings to your community?
I feel like this shows that Asian Americans, along with most minorities in the United States, face a lot of discrimination, and that something should definitely be done about this.
Okay, thank you.